Ask the Mayor. Your chance to ask the Mayor of Weymouth, Bob Headland, questions about the town of Weymouth and or anything else that you have concerns about. Ask the Mayor is pre-recorded. And now, here's Bob Headland.
Welcome to another edition of Ask the Mayor. I'm your mayor, Bob Headland, and a little new look to the show today, and I'm not talking about our new mascot. Every week we try to kind of spice up our set. The beaver is gone, but we have Town Hall with us, so we're excited about that. And not only do we have a new prop, we have a new citizen inquisitor / citizen advocate, yes. Mary Heinrichs. Thanks for joining us.
For this temporary program while we fill in for our friend Jim Melody.
Yes. We should call this edition the sick bay edition. The citizen inquisitor, Mr. Melody, is ill today. We wish him a speedy recovery. I'm sure he'll be well back on his feet by the time the show airs. And I'm fighting a little laryngitis here, and my voice feels good at the moment, but it may dissipate, so you'll have to filibuster when I lose my voice.
Oh gosh.
So Mary was a little nervous about pinch hitting, but I know that she is in tune with all things happening in Weymouth, so she will provide herself as an able backup to the citizen inquisitor.
For sure.
Maybe, just maybe, this could be kind of a Lou Gehrig situation.
I don't know Lou Gehrig aside that he was a baseball player?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and he suffered from a horrible disease. That's about the extent of my knowledge.
But before Cal Ripken came along, Lou Gehrig was the Iron Man who had the longest consecutive game streak in Major League history until it was broken 90s, I guess, by Cal Ripken. And the famous story was that I think it was Wally Pipp was the first baseman for the Yankees who was ill or something, and Lou Gehrig filled in. Never to see Wally Pipp ever again. So well, we could have the same dynamic here.
I'm not sure. I think I'm a one-hit wonder.
This could be your big break. And she warned me, by the way, we're not going to get into the pop culture references that the citizen inquisitor, Mr. Melody, gets into often. Although, and she said right up front, I don't know 70s music that well.
Even though we're just a few years apart in age.
And then 5 minutes later, she references a 1970s song by, I believe, the Andrea True connection, More.
You brought up More.
But you knew it.
I did know it.
Yeah.
Because I told you it's more of a disco tune.
Okay, so you're limited to disco.
Which is more of, not disco, I'm now country, but I always stay with the music, Mayor. Whatever year it is, I'm with that music.
Oh, see, I got stuck.
You did. You got stuck way back. I'm
like those woolly mammoths they find up in Siberia encased in ice.
Yes.
Just like frozen in time. I like stuck. No, there's some new stuff I like. But you're filling, by wasting time on this show, you're filling Mr. Melody's shoes quite ably. And once again, the mayor has to steer the advocate back into the direction of some of the questions. So what are those questions?
Okay, I will begin.
All
Hi,
right,
Mayor Headland. This is from Nancy Higgins. It has become a concern of mine over the past couple of years that people are going door-to-door soliciting in the East Weymouth neighborhood where I live. I believe the commuter rail train brought people into the area selling various products like Anderson windows and construction products and such. Anderson, she believes, is the only legit company. The woman had information and a phone number.
The only legit company that came to her door, or the only legit window company?
I don't know. I'm not really sure.
I prefer Harvey, but that's okay.
She says they don't leave printed information or a callback number. Some wanted to schedule an appointment. I didn't feel safe knowing that people were canvassing my neighborhood, and this purpose has been brought to light. So she wants to know, can anything be done about door-to-door salesmen?
This is amazing because on the last show, as you may recall, we got a question on this. Do you remember? It was from a different resident. So, and I think our citizen inquisitor downplayed the significance of the question, if you recall, the last episode. And I said to him, if somebody took the time to write to us, this topic is just as important to them as another topic to someone else that took the time to write. And I think we answered it in the last show. So we'll reiterate this. We cannot ban door-to-door salesmen. But many years ago, and I don't remember what year, the town adopted a bylaw that requires door-to-door salesmen coming to Weymouth that they must register with the police department before they go door-to-door. Now, that creates kind of a complicated situation in that you would expect that if they are legitimate, they have registered with the police department, and your fears should be allayed, because the police department is aware of their presence and vet them. However, if they didn't, how do you know that they didn't? And I would assume that somewhere along the line, a resident is going to call the police department, and they're going to say, oh, no, it's okay, they're registered. If they didn't register, then the police department may come out and address the situation. So it does provide for a level of security. I don't know how much the commuter rail train would impact the number of door-to-door salesmen we have coming to town. I've noticed in my neighborhood that it seems to be a proliferation of window salesmen, yes. Solar panel salesman,
yeah,
that's big.
say that one, yeah.
You know, it's funny how it's evolved over time. We're talking windows and solar. Years ago, I can remember encyclopedia salesman, Fuller brush salesman. That's how old I am, and things like that. I was a door-to-door salesman as a kid. I sold seeds.
You did?
It was awesome. I was probably in like 5th grade. You know, I saw in the back of a comic book, you mail order, you get a box of seeds, you go out in the spring, and people would buy them and, you know, use them to plant in their garden. It was pretty lucrative. I sell 50 cents a pack.
The only kid reference that I have was we used to collect after we brought the newspapers during the week.
Well, that's
so
the thing.
we would go and knock on the people's doors at that time, and they would give us cash. I mean, that's long gone.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think that there's so much that has changed
since we were kids.
Depresses me that, you know, kids don't have the opportunity. You learn a lot being a paper boy, paper girl. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I delivered my first paper route. I remember we were playing street hockey, and a guy pulled up, shady-looking character in a station wagon, interrupted our game, said, anyone here want to deliver the paper? Me and my buddy, yeah, we'll do it. We were like in 4th grade, and it was the Herald Traveler, which was on its last legs before it merged with the Record American to become the, I may get
Herald
this wrong.
American.
Yeah, it became the Herald American, and became the Herald whatever. There was a series of mergers that ultimately, you know, became part of the forerunner of the Boston Herald. But it was the old Herald Traveler. And it was on its last legs, and I only had like one house every street, right? So I had to cover like, you know, 10 blocks.
Yeah.
And I was so envious of the Patriot Ledger carrier because his was in the afternoon, mine was in the morning, so I had to get up extra early before school and do it. And my route was horrible. And he did what I did in just 2 streets, and I had to cover this huge geographic area to match that. 2 dog bites.
Wow.
On that route as a kid, which to this day is probably why I'm not the most dog-friendly guy, which probably hurts me politically, but it is what it is. So anyway, back to...
Well, I went over on Great Hill Drive was my route, and I actually got to jump over that fence in the center lane of Great Hill Drive.
Oh, okay. What paper did you deliver?
I did Globe and Herald. It went down Next Street almost to the Kibbe property, which we recently dedicated.
Right.
And then I would go up Great Hill Drive and back down onto Regatta. I also had siblings that did other parts of the routes on Regatta, Bradmere.
It just seems all those jobs we had as kids, you know, you learn so much from it, and I don't think there's those opportunities. I think that nowadays probably, you know, people would be afraid of their 5th grade student being out alone.
I don't know. I
delivering
think shoveling opportunities are still great.
You don't see it as much, though.
No, you don't.
And then the first real major, like full-time high school job I had was pumping gas, and we had debate in the legislature on an update to our child labor laws, and they made what I did at the time I did it now illegal. Oh. You can't leave a kid under 18 unattended after 8 p.m. alone.
Right.
And I ran a gas station till 10 p.m. by myself back when I was still 15.
Wow.
And that stuff's illegal now, but you know, you learn a lot. So we got off a little Mrs. What was her name again?
Oh, gosh, do I have to go back? Higgins.
Mrs. Higgins. So feel confident that the police do register if you suspect that they're not, you know, if they may be shady, call your police department. Or if nothing else works, you can, I'm told by town solicitor, when this question came up before, you can post a no trespassing sign, and a door-to-door salesman must honor that. And if all else fails, get yourself a big, barking, ornery dog.
Okay. Okay, next question. Dear Mayor, as a child, I loved riding bikes. My favorite bike was a mongoose, which they still make because my son had one. As a child, what was yours? P.S. I heard the Nature Boy loved Schwinn's. I don't know who Nature Boy is. Your opinion.
Do we have a name on this?
Chef Jason Thayer.
Who seems to be a
Regular.
somewhat regular, yes. And
Yes.
he tends to give us some off-the-path, beaten questions now and then. But this is funny because at the time of this taping, I noticed in the last day or two, driving down Washington Street, I observed that Western Auto is now closed.
Oh, it is?
And that was an institution here in Weymouth.
Agreed.
My grandfather had a diner across the street, and I know the guy that ran that, Jim Rundle, I think was his name, hung around my grandfather's restaurant. And I am sure, I'm going to guess, there's a lot of people watching the show among the thousands and thousands of viewers we have, according to Arbitron.
Arbitron, okay.
That bought their first bike or bought a bike at Western Auto. I'm willing to bet.
Yeah.
You must know.
Yeah, we did.
Well,
Sure.
you were a North Weymouth kid. Where would people go to buy a bike?
There.
Really?
Yes.
So I don't know where my first bike came from. I don't remember, but it was a Huffy. And this is in the days, by the way, Mr. Thayer, when these bikes were American-made. You know, now you can't find an American-made bike unless it's a very specialized, high-tech mountain bike or something, racing bike. Very expensive, but China's taken over that production. I had a Huffy Stingray kind of thing, and we decided, probably 5th grade, and we decided to alter it. And we would cut the forks, get another fork off another set of bikes and extend it so you had a chopper. I'm sure a lot of kids of the 70s remember that. You don't see kids doing that anymore. Right?
No.
And then I was ready to step up for a 10-speed. I was kind of behind the curve. A lot of my friends in the neighborhood were getting 10 speeds, and I couldn't keep up with them on my stupid extended fork Huffy.
Yeah.
And finally, my parents bought me a 10-speed, and I remember going over to Western Auto and getting that Schwinn 10-speed, and I don't know why I ended up with a canary yellow. They bought it. I think Rundle gave them a deal because canary yellow didn't sell.
Yeah.
And I didn't like driving around the neighborhood in a canary yellow 10-speed, but to this day I love biking. Great pastime. I encourage, there's a lot of opportunities in Weymouth, especially great paths up at Union Point now. So anyway, the answer to that question was probably wasn't my favorite bike, but it meant a lot, and the fact that it came from Western Auto, and the fact that Western Auto in the last couple of days shut down. I knew the place had been on the market. The zoning we have that the council passed a number of years ago down there, and Mayor Kay approved, create some development potential for that site, and I think you're probably going to see, I would guess, I don't have any information as to what's going to happen there, but I think you're probably going to see the building ripped down.
No kidding.
And a development occur there, as is happening up and down that
Sure.
street right
Yeah.
now, which was the intention of that zoning change. So we segued from a silly question to something that's kind of serious.
And I have to
in the
plug
landing.
your Gmail. It's askmayorbob@gmail.com if anybody at home has any questions that they would like to submit for the next
About
episode.
bikes or serious matters facing the
Yes.
town of Weymouth.
So this is from Suzanne Torres. I recently heard your MC announce on
That
your
would be
recent.
Jim
That
Melody.
would be Jim Melody.
He's not the MC,
No.
Suzanne. He is the citizen inquisitor /
Yes.
advocate.
That there's no on-street parking in Weymouth. How can this be? Some apartment dwellers do not have driveways, and some apartments advertised as on-street parking. What if someone has 2 cars and a driveway for only 1 car? And we do know of
Right.
incidences around town. And some of the former cottages around Whitman's Pond, they may not even have a driveway.
Right.
So what's the deal on overnight parking?
This is interesting. You asked this question today. Earlier today, we got a complaint from a resident. I probably won't mention the street, but it's one of these crazy Weymouth streets that I rail about all the time, where bad zoning decisions were made. We have single-family homes and then a big apartment building, smack dab in the middle of it. And the big apartment building, for whatever reason, people don't like to have to go around back and park in the parking lot that's
Yeah.
there. And they're cluttering up the street, and neighbors are complaining. So we're dealing with this on another front, ironically, in another part of town from where I think she's North Weymouth. Does she give her
Yes,
address?
yeah,
Yeah, she said North Street,
C Street,
C Street.
yeah.
So the short answer on this is that the overnight parking regulations were updated under Mayor Kay at one point. I don't know what year, but it was during the Kay administration. She had a big summit with police, et cetera, to look at the situation, and they came up with, and I assume it was passed by the council, I'm guessing, as an ordinance, a 12:01 a.m. to 7 a.m. parking on-street parking ban. And I guess you can go to the police department and get a sticker that exempts you from that if you have the right extenuating circumstances. I don't necessarily agree that we should pass things that then don't become enforced.
Well, from my understanding
Right.
from the
I know where you're
police
going.
is that it's year-round. It's actually a year-round
But
policy.
they don't enforce it until
Correct.
snow situations, which
Correct.
common sense would dictate you want to get your car off the street
Right.
during a snow emergency. It's funny, I briefly rented a place in Hingham, and I didn't have a driveway. I paid $175 a month rent for a shack
Well, that's a good deal,
Down
especially in Hingham.
on Bonnie Briar Circle.
I know where it is.
It's come up after they put sewage in, but at the time it was,
Lower priced.
yes. It made sections of the Birches look like Beverly Hills. I know that even though it's Hingham, it's hard to believe that, but I didn't have a driveway, and I was able to get the car 99.9% off the street, and like part of my left, right, and left front tires on the edge on a dead-end street, and they ticketed me. That's Hingham. So I think that the Weymouth police are somewhat understanding. They have to address the situation in the winter, but again, I don't particularly like passing an ordinance that doesn't technically get enforced. Maybe the ordinance should have said at times of the year, but I understand in some areas of town, like the woman who's complaining about Charles Street, they want to get a handle on that.
Well,
so
I
it's
also,
a tough issue.
I think so too, that a few years ago we saw a lot of articles in Quincy where a lot of people were paving their front yards to make way for more parking. And then a lot of the neighbors saying, you're really taking away the character of the neighborhood.
Correct.
And so the city of Quincy had to react to that. So
Well,
at least we're not at a spot where everybody's categorically paving their front lawns to make room for more cars.
And I lived in Quincy, and talk about character of the community. I mean, the density of development that's occurring in Quincy, I mean, that ship has sailed.
I agreed, yeah.
I mean, I drove down an old street recently that I lived in, and beautiful old colonial house that was next door to the house I lived in. It's gone, and there's this ugly giant thing, those giant stilts because of the garage.
Yeah.
They've shoved like 4 townhouses that aren't even that attractive looking on one single family house.
Oh, it's interesting that you bring up not attractive looking things.
Okay.
Because there's a question
And we
here.
wouldn't be talking obviously about the new host,
No.
co-host of the show.
Oh gosh, I hope not.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Can Weymouth, with the assistance from the mayor, ever encourage New England facades on new commercial construction?
This is a great question. And who is it from?
Mrs. Marshall in South Weymouth.
So we obviously can't force developers. There's private property rights. We can't force people to do certain things, but we have now instituted a process that other communities employ. Quincy actually does it. When we have a significant development come in, we are going through some design review procedures with developers. And there are some areas where we think that's appropriate to pursue the kind of look that she's talking about, but we also feel that there's other areas where things are evolving. And I don't agree that, for instance, in Weymouth Landing, as we see some of the development proposals coming in here, there's some 21st century type design that's actually happening. Green roofs and modern, ecologically sound building practices that are actually going to have a little different look. So that goes through this new process that our planning department has put in place, where we undertake this peer review and design review. So the answer is yes. That process had not really occurred here before. That's a change that we've made, and where it's appropriate, we push the developer to kind of go in that direction, depending upon what neighborhood we're talking about or what village center we're talking about.
Okay, another question. Has there been any feedback on the turning lanes and new painted lines in Columbian Square?
Excellent question, yeah. We've gotten a lot of feedback.
Good? Is it good or bad?
I'm amazed, actually. This is pretty cool. So we're almost completed. We're waiting for the lights to be delivered for the parking lot. But phase 1 of the Columbian Square improvements was the rehab of the parking lot, which we completed early last year, right out of the gate. at basically no cost to the town. We advanced some mitigation monies from L-Star.
Yeah.
They stepped it up, accelerated the schedule for us after we asked. And a private landowner paid for some of the street work. We had made that ask too. So that went very well. Phase 2 is obviously to address the traffic issues, to see if we can make improvements. We dusted off the 2008 study. We've hired a traffic consulting firm that I'm very excited on some of the work that they've done. If anyone's familiar with Peabody Center, they had a similar kind of situation that this firm retooled Peabody Center, made some improvements which have worked out well, which is one of the reasons why we chose this firm after the process, looking at other firms. And in the interim, it was decided by our planning, actually, I don't know if it was my idea or our planning department director's idea one day when we were walking around down there, just on a site visit, kicking around different ideas. And I think I had suggested, why not paint some lines in there to see how they work, just to bring a little order, and it might help.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anyone would adhere to them.
Oh, I thought they would.
I didn't. I thought it would still be kind of chaos, which it still is, obviously, but the feedback we got was, and just from my observations and going down there, like people actually see them, utilize them, and adhere to them. Not everybody, but a good, I'd say the majority of people do, and it's helped bring a little bit of order down there, so they've helped. And that was just kind of a throw it out there, see what happens thing. You know, it was done pretty much in-house. It didn't cost really any money to do that. So in answer to her question, we've gotten a lot of feedback. I honestly didn't think, I misread that one. I like to think I got my finger on the pulse or my ear to the ground. On that one, I didn't think we would get the level of feedback that we got. I thought we were going to look stupid, to be honest with you. I thought we were going to like paint these lines out there, and you know, that was one of the trial things we did. The other thing we did was we had the merchants put some outdoor seating out there, because part of the concept is to make it...
Yes, I saw that. Walk Boston.
Yeah, part of Walk Boston's recommendation. So we did it as a trial. We told them you didn't have to go through a cumbersome permit process. They put tables out there. They were very skeptical at first, and then they said, hey, people actually like to sit outside. And so we're trying different things down there.
Okay, as you know, we're working on a new library. At what point in time do you know what's going to happen to the other branches once our new big branch, the big one, is going to be built?
Okay, so that's open for discussion. The plan right now, the official line is that there'll be no change with the other branches. But I think that we do have to have a conversation at some point about that. There aren't too many communities in the state that have more libraries than fire stations. And I can tell you, according to the Mass Board of Library Commissioners, with the exception of Springfield and Barnstable, Weymouth has more library branches per capita than any community in Massachusetts. So we're making a significant investment and almost doubling the size of the Tufts Library. Maybe we need to have a discussion on how efficient those other branches are going to be once that new library comes online, but we've got a few years before we have to think about that.
I think too, as a kid, my mother would take us, lots of moms were stay-at-home moms, the fathers went off to work.
Well, kids rode bikes, like we were talking about earlier in the show, and would go to the library.
But we would go to the North Weymouth branch of that library. We wouldn't go over to South Weymouth. I really learned only about South Weymouth when I was an adult.
Tufts isn't in South Weymouth, though.
No, it's not, but there's a fog.
Right. But what I'm saying is right now, even though Tufts is kind of the flagship in terms of the services it provides and the hours and everything else, it's not much of a flagship. The new library is going to be a flagship. Right. That is going to be the place you're going to want to go.
Which is why residents are wondering what's going to happen to those smaller libraries. And your predecessor put, a lot of commitment into the fog. It's beautiful.
Right.
But I think a lot of folks in South Weymouth I hope they're not going to close the fog after putting a
No, I wouldn't think with the investment that you can't, I don't think you could argue that you'd close fog. I mean, obviously, and there's been no discussion, I want to make this clear, but, there's been none, but I'm guessing that maybe there'll be a discussion about the other two smaller branches, which are problematic because for use, as you know, they were given with a covenant by donors, and there's covenants that it can only be used for a library, and that would take a state law to change the use, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at usage, and I'm sure that's going to change dramatically with a brand new Tufts, people are going to want to go there.
Sure.
We'll have to reevaluate and look at what the usage of the other branches. So.
Right. And in your opinion, Is it Great Hill, Emery Estate, or Webb State Park that has the very best view in Weymouth? Do you have a place in town where if you had a visitor that you had never met, no, but somebody coming in from town that wants to see Weymouth, where would you take them?
A visitor, or maybe when I was in high school and...
Yeah, maybe.
No.
Do you have
So the
a
choices
place
were Emery.
Well, you can fill in your own choice, I think. It's Great Hill, Emery, or Webb State Park. Which would be the place that you would take somebody to really say, isn't this great to live in Weymouth?
Well, I would rule out Emery in this sense, and the planning department's going to kill me, and we're investing money in Emery, but I'd rule Emery off that list just because I don't have the nostalgia and personal history with Emery. Mm-hmm. The other site, two sites I do. Webb State Park, great view, closer to where I grew up. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I could see the park, and I'm old enough to just barely remember when the Nike missiles would come out.
Oh, I never saw those.
Unbelievable! It was awesome. They'd raise the Nike missiles out every once in a while, just to I think to test the hydraulics or whatever. I mean, obviously they didn't shoot them off, and then in 1981. Walking around out there before it became a state park, someone had broken the weld off one of the covers, and me and a buddy actually went down inside the shaft, and some of the old wings to the Nike missiles were still down in the shaft. It was awesome.
Wow.
So I'm partial to that. I love the views out there. I walk out there a lot. I would have to go view-wise, though. I'd say Great Hill. I mean, I like the ocean view, the water view. You can see the boat traffic coming in, and just because it's higher a little bit than Webb. And I have sentimental reasons for that. And it's not what you think, Mary. I know people joke about the submarine races and all that. But we used to take a little hiatus out of school and drive. This is when we had our cars, and kind of slip off campus and drive over to Burger King for lunch. I had E-period study hall, so I wasn't cutting class. It might be a gray area as to whether or not leaving campus was okay, but drive to Burger King, and we would go up the hill and have a nice hamburger, when we get tired of the school fare. The Burger King onion rings, and a nice double hamburger.
Okay.
Occasionally we actually went and had the luncheon specials at Cathay Center also, and get back in time. Nobody knew we were gone.
All right, so that's...
I'd have to say none of the above, and I'm going to throw a new pick in, and I'm going to say Great Esker Park.
For the best view?
Oh, there's a couple spots. Yes, absolutely.
It's hard to get to, though. You have to walk in.
That's what I like about it.
Okay.
We have a lot to offer in this town, and maybe for
Agreed.
a subsequent show, we're going to talk about some additional open space. Yeah. We'll be folding into our open space portfolio, and I'm getting on the planning department. And one of the things I like about this job is I steal ideas from other towns that I used to represent. Mm-hmm. Hingham came up with a beautiful user's guide to open space in Hingham, where it catalogs it all, describes the property, and provides a map on a little pamphlet. And we're working on something like that for Weymouth, because we have open space that people don't know about, and we're going to be adding a couple of pieces in the coming year. Okay, so remember to email your questions to askmayorbob@gmail.com, and we are out of time. And you ably filled in. He might be out of a job, so
I'm not so sure.
You could be the Lou Gehrig of Ask the Mayor.
No.
Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
If you have a question, please email the mayor at askmayorbob@gmail.com. That's askmayorbob@gmail.com. Maybe your question will be answered on the next episode of Ask the Mayor.